Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today, and Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate it. It's coming right up here. Today I am going to discuss a little bit about homesteading, which is my usual topic here, but I'm also going to talk about some health issues that I've been having, and it's sort of a cautionary tale for homesteaders. So for about a year and a half, I noticed that I had a growth on this eyelid. And it started out just as a small sort of white dot, and I didn't think very much of it. I thought maybe it was going to develop into a cyst, and it did get bigger slowly over time, and it did look like a cyst, and I tried to pop it, and nothing happened, and I thought, I probably should talk to my doctor about that, and several times forgot to mention it to him. Finally, I mentioned it to my GP when I was in just for a regular checkup. And he looked at it and also thought it was a cyst, and he tried to stick a needle in it and try to get the gunk out of it, and instead it just de-roofed it. And he said, wow, this is not a cyst. I don't know what this is. I don't think it's cancer, but I'm going to send you to a dermatologist. So within about a week, I was able to see a dermatologist. And he took one look at it and just was visibly shaken and said, that looks like cancer. And I was very taken aback because I don't consider myself high risk for skin cancer, certainly. But he didn't want to even biopsy it. He didn't want to touch it. He sent me to an ophthalmologist because of the location here on my eyelid. And I went to the ophthalmologist maybe a week later. And he said, well, it could be cancer, but I think that it's this virus, a virus that is called molluscum contagiosum, which is something that little kids usually get, although adults can get it as well. And it's highly contagious. And I thought, well, that seems so strange, but I went on that assumption that it was this very contagious virus where I should be washing my hands if I ever touch my face, and I was paranoid about giving it to my kids or my husband or something. And I had to wait several weeks in order to get a biopsy from this doctor. The biopsy itself was, it wasn't painful because they gave me a local, although getting the local itself isn't that pleasant. But it felt a little bit like medieval torture. There was a bright light in my eye, and of course my eyelid was propped open and my eyes were watering, and he did the biopsy, and then he took like a Q-tip and put it underneath my eyelid and was poking around because he was under this assumption that it was a virus, and it's a type of virus that sometimes our immune systems don't recognize, and therefore the immune system doesn't fight it. And so by poking around, my understanding was that he was trying to get my immune system to recognize it. I was glad when that was over. I had a big bruised eye, had basically an opening where they had trimmed the lesion in order to biopsy it. And I went home and healed, and I waited for the biopsy results, which took a little over a week. And the doctor said, it isn't molluscum. He was really surprised, and it wasn't a type of cancer either, as far as they could tell. They didn't know what it was. They gave it a name, but the name was just describing the features of the lesion. So he said, this ophthalmologist, he told me, I am going to send you to a guy several hours away. All he does is plastic surgery on eyes, and he needs to remove this because we don't know what it is, and it's growing rapidly. It seems like it could be precancerous or cancer, and he even named a type of cancer that he thought maybe it was. Didn't seem quite right to him, but he sent me several hours away to see this guy, who was also an ophthalmologist, but he does a lot of surgery on eyelids. So I was finally, after several weeks, able to see this guy, which was kind of a big deal, My husband had to take time off work and drive me down there, and it's kind of an all-day event. And he looked at it, and he said, yeah, we got to remove this. And I said, it just seems weird to me. I know it's not this virus, not only because, the biopsy said it wasn't, but forever I wasn't careful about touching my eyes and then like touching another part of my body. This is a virus where you wash your face and then dry off, another part of your body and you get it there. I didn't have it anywhere else on my body. Nobody else in my family had it. And I certainly hadn't been around little children who had it, which would be typically the kind of place you would get it from. And I said, cancer doesn't seem right to me either. I just don't feel like I'm high risk. And he agreed with me. He said, as did several other doctors, you're young for skin cancer to show up. You're not a sun worshiper. I never did tanning beds, never, sunbathe, things like that you might anticipate somebody would get skin cancer from. Nevertheless, he wanted to do this and to remove this from my eye. And it was a little scary because, you're awake during the procedure, and I kept thinking, well, what if it turns out it's not cancer and they deform my eye, and all the things you think about. So long story short, I went in for surgery, let's see, it was last Tuesday, so less than a week ago. And it actually was easier than the biopsy because they gave me medicine to completely relax me, through an IV. Before they ever even did a local. I never felt the local even. And it was very quick and very little pain even afterwards. My eye was really big and swollen, and you can probably see now I still have a shiner. And of course the stitches. But the good news was, originally they thought they were probably going to have to do a skin graft. They were going to take skin from up here, just below my eyebrow, and bring it down here. And of course, when you have a skin graft, there's a much higher risk for everything, including, having the skin be rejected by your body. So thankfully, he was just able to just do ordinary stitches and no skin graft. So that was wonderful news, an answer to prayer for sure. So I finally heard back, what is this, right? My doctor called a couple days after the surgery. They got the answer really quickly, and he said it was cancer. Even he was really surprised. It did not look like anything I have seen online that looks like skin cancer. It wasn't typical according to the doctors either, but it was squamous cell carcinoma. So, unfortunately, this means that I'm likely to get it somewhere else on my body. So from now on, I have to be really paying attention to any changes in my skin. So, why did I get this? I don't even recall having sunburns very often, more in recent years since we moved to our mountaintop homestead, unfortunately. I would get one about once a year. So obviously I'm going to have to be a lot more careful about that. But they typically say it happens in years ago before it shows up as cancer. So I have no answer for this, although if you read up on it, you will find that even though they think the sun or UV exposure is the primary way people get skin cancer, at least with this type of skin cancer, there's kind of this note that, yeah, we don't fully understand this, and people get it in areas where the sun doesn't reach, which pretty much is me, because when my eye is open, the area where I had the cancer isn't exposed. And like I said, I don't sunbathe or go to a tanning booth, as you could probably tell. So it's a big question mark. But it still obviously has me thinking a lot about what I can do differently to try and protect my skin and lessen, hopefully, my risk of having more skin cancer. And this is where we kind of get into homesteading. So obviously most people who are homesteading are outdoors a lot, probably way more than sort of your average city person or suburbanite. And we're often doing hard work outdoors in the hot sun. And I know for me personally, that can mean, I don't want to wear a hat or a long shirt or, because you get hot, that's uncomfortable, right? And some people, if they sweat a lot, it can be very difficult to keep sunscreen on. So this is kind of what I'm thinking right now. If you read up on sunscreen, there's actually no solid scientific evidence that it helps prevent skin cancer. And while it's true that there's no really strong scientific evidence that sort of your standard sunscreens that you would buy in your average pharmacy or big box store, you know, the common names we all know, there isn't real strong evidence that they cause skin cancer, but there have been lab studies that show, you know, in a petri dish, it can cause, those chemicals that they use can cause weird things to happen to cells. And it kind of makes sense to me, right? And we're talking about chemicals that we normally wouldn't ingest or apply to our bodies. And is it surprising that it might cause issues? Not to me. So while I cannot buy a more natural sunscreen locally, I can buy them online on Amazon. And I've picked a brand out that is more natural and I think has pretty good ratings, and I'm gonna give that a try. In the past, I've always been hesitant to use a lot of sunscreen because I need my vitamin D. I live in an area where people are chronically low on vitamin D, so it's not a complete solution for me. Another thing that I'm gonna have to get much better about is wearing a hat, and a really good sun hat, one that goes with a brim that goes all the way around. I haven't in the past because I happen to live in a windy area and I have trouble keeping my hat on. Plus, you know, the hat kind of gets in your way and then it gets dirty and it's hot and all these excuses that you can make to convince yourself not to wear one. But obviously I'm going to need to be a lot more conscientious about that. And I've thought too, you know, in the old days when so many more people were working out in the sun, you know, whether they were working in a field or they were washerwomen working outside, you just think about, you know, the occupations that most people had previous to the Industrial Revolution. They were working outside, which is why pale skin was the popular thing among fashionable ladies, right? It showed that you didn't have to go work out in the sun. So I'm sure some people got skin cancer in those days, but why didn't they all get it? You know, I think there's probably a genetic component, although it doesn't run in my family. But also people religiously wore hats. They just did. So I think a hat is a really important consideration. I already eat a diet that should be really good for helping to fight cancer. I eat keto for other health reasons. It's been a real lifesaver for me. And I've talked a little bit about that in some other videos. So I don't really think I need to change my diet. But if I were eating a lot of sugar, including honey, or a very high carb diet, you know, lots of wheat, potatoes, rice, those kinds of things, lots of grains, I would definitely be cutting those back, way back if I could. So this is what I'm thinking right now. Let it be a cautionary tale to you, and you know, it is what it is, and I believe God is firmly in control, and I'm not overly worried about it, but I also want to be smart about it too. So anyway, I just wanted to update you, tell you why I really haven't been posting, and this is my first day I've kind of been up and about. The doctors have me on the couch for days after the surgery, and I'm still not supposed to bend over or lift or exert, which leaves out everything in my homestead life almost. So I decided to do a video, and I hope to be making videos again very soon. See you next time. Bye.